Welcome to Refirement Life, the podcast for anyone navigating life transitions or planning to make life transitions to ensure your next years are your best years. Listen in for insightful, generous, and sometimes humorous conversation. It's time to get fired up with Christine Zamuda and Muge Wood, your hosts for this latest episode of Refirement Life.
Welcome to Refirement Life. I'm so excited today to have Patrick van den Berg here. Patrick is an internationally recognized expert in ethical persuasion, influence, and human decision-making. As a licensed trainer with the Cialdini Institute and a founding member of the organization, Patrick has spent more than 2 decades helping leaders, sales teams, and organizations understand the science behind why people say yes. Drawing on decades of research and real-world business experience, Patrick teaches practical, evidence-based strategies that improve communication, build trust, and increase influence without manipulation. It's very important. He is also the author of How to Hear Yes More Often and is passionate about helping people communicate with greater integrity and impact. Patrick, we're thrilled to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Christina Mugi. I remember when I discovered Dr. Cialdini's work and how it fascinated me, as in, are you serious? Is this how it works? And there's no need to lie and cheat to be a lot more successful in reaching your goals. And I remember that feeling, and I see that feeling in people's eyes when I do a keynote or a workshop. And I love facilitating that experience in people. So I imagine, even though we can't see our audience, I imagine we're going to generate a similar sort of experience in the people that are going to be listening to this. So thank you very much for putting me in front of them.
Absolutely.
And I think what I love about this, what I am excited alongside with Christine, Patrick, is we talked prior, the applicability of the concepts to many situations we may find ourselves in, whether you are starting a new business, entrepreneurship, your manager, your customers, your volunteer organization, timeless and applicable. And I know a lot of people don't want to get into sales because they think it's manipulation. So I think it would be great to look at it in a very different way. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting to point that out, as in we've all learned skills, especially for business, right? And you could probably argue that whatever we learned 5 years ago is outdated now, right? But when it comes to persuasion science, this was applicable when Dr. Cialdini published his book in 1984, and it took off and was a very valuable topic. But it just increases in value because our brain hasn't changed how we're reacting to things, but our environment has changed, making this more important, more valuable, which might be why organizations like the World Economic Forum in their 2025 Future of Jobs report increase the importance of leadership and social influence, which is another word for ethical persuasion, to priority number 3 for businesses to develop moving forward towards 2030. So it's a skill that was valuable already, but it just gets more valuable, and it's a skill that will last you going deeper into the future of our lives. And what's fascinating, it works in business, but it also works privately, right? When you're trying to achieve your goals, could be sales related, could be getting buy-in from people, you need to be persuasive. But when you've got children and you want them to clean up their room, or you're asking somebody to come out on a trip with you, you're also going to have to be persuasive. So it's an important life skill.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive in. And I guess this is really a study on how human beings make decisions, how they think, and how you can connect in a way that's authentic, as you sort of mentioned, with integrity. But let's get into it. So you often say that people don't make decisions the way they think they do. And I think that's kind of interesting. So what's one truth about human decision making that surprises almost everyone, whether you're a leader or not?
Okay, well, I'll have to dive a little bit into the science with that. But a lot of people have heard, oh yeah, people choose with emotions, and there's a truth to that. But when it comes to decision making, the human brain has two parts, and I'm leaning on the work of a Professor Daniel Kahneman, who won a Nobel Prize in economics in 2002, which was a little bit surprising because he was a professor in psychology and a behavioral scientist. So, what does he figure out that has such an impact on economics that he wins a Nobel Prize for it? And it had to do with decision making. And basically, because decisions shape economics. So he explains that basically the human brain has two parts when it comes to decision making. System 1, which is the intuitive part of the brain, and system 2, which is the logical, rational part of the brain. System 1 works fast. It's automatic. It works outside of our conscious control, and it works most of the time, takes very little effort to run, and it takes a lot of its decisions based on shortcuts. Rules of thumb that we've learned serve us well most of the time. Examples could be expensive equals good, right? We've learned from experience, if I spend a bit more money on something, chances are I've bought something better. Or if a lot of other people are doing it, it must be the right thing to do, right? That's why when we have two restaurants in a strange city, one's empty, one's half full, we'll definitely not go into the empty restaurant, right? Because the locals might know something more about the other restaurant they went to, and we're probably safer off going there as well. So system 1 runs a lot on those shortcuts. So on the other side, we have system 2, the logical part of the brain, rational part of the brain. This takes a lot more energy to run. It runs slowly, takes a lot of effort. It requires our attention to run. And it looks at all the available options and comes up with the most appropriate decisions. So it's more reliable, but it takes a lot of effort to run. Anyway, to shorten this, because we don't have too much time today, Daniel Kahneman demonstrates that 90% of our decisions are made by system 1, automatically, outside of our conscious control, largely made on shortcuts. Now it's said that that's 95% and further increasing. Now, first of all, the reason that this percentage is increasing is because our attention span is getting shorter. We are overloaded with what we get every single day. We are distracted more than ever before. In the 80s, we had an attention span of 20 minutes. The goldfish is supposed to be 9 seconds, right? Our attention span is now 7 seconds. We've been beaten by the goldfish. And so our audience doesn't have the time so much to deliberate on decisions. They're getting less and less time. So they're leaning more heavily on system 1. And so here is the big clanger that I'm trying to get to. Unless you know the science, when you stop and you think, how am I going to convince another party? How am I going to get buy-in from these people I need to launch my next idea? Or how am I going to convince my loyal followers to, get excited about this new product that we're launching and that we're selling? When you're thinking about that and you don't know the science, you're using conscious thought. And conscious thought is associated to system 2, the logical, rational part of the brain. System 1 was the unconscious part. And so when you come up with all these ideas of how to convince someone else, you're using system 2, and that has the tendency to come up with ideas, rationale, strategies, claims that would require system 2 in the other party, in your audience, to process what it is you're saying. And they don't have the time for that anymore. So you actually create more uncertainty in your audience. And so if you, let's say in any given period of time, whatever field you're in, if you do 1,000 proposals, 1,000 pitches, and you get a certain amount of yeses, and if it's sales related, then it's probably a small amount of yeses, then we would deduct that, well, then the rest of them were no's, right? We didn't get the business, we didn't get the buy-in, we didn't get the cooperation. And we would argue, not really. A larger percentage than you can probably imagine of those no's were not no's at all. They were indecision. People decided not to decide. Had you just been able to find little pieces of information that would have appealed to the intuitive part of the brain that, hey, this is probably a good decision for me, a lot more people would have said yes, would have cooperated, which explains how, the impact of ethical persuasion or behavioral science can be so large. You can make a small change in a sentence and have a dramatic impact on the results. So that's a big thing a lot of people don't realize. If you don't know the science, you'll actually come up with more reasons that actually confuse your audience. And if you just knew a little bit of science, you'd do so much better, and you wouldn't be losing all the successes that were really yours to have, that were sitting right there on the table for you to have.
That's so interesting. And I think I have a real world case study that actually proves that out, something I experimented with last week. We were doing some outreach on some of the new things that we have to offer. And I did like an A/B test of, hey, to senior executives, let's have a 15-minute idea exchange on how leaders are approaching AI adoption. That was one. It was really short. And the other one was a little bit more detailed, right? It had like, I don't know, four things to absorb. Did 10 of these, of the 5 that were the short, I have 3 conversations that were booked. So I think to your point, like less is more, like, oh, that's intriguing. Let's just have a short conversation rather than, I'm the 7-second goldfish right now between meetings, and I'm not going to be able to digest all of this.
Yeah, certainly.
It is amazing. I mean, I am just listening vigorously, nodding and shaking my head. Yes, we have been in many of these situations. And, the part that becomes almost, we make it worse, when we don't see the outcome we seek, then we double down with more information, more facts, which only makes it even worse. And when we look at, let's say, world of business, a lot of winners, they win with simplicity. Simple messages, simple proposition that people can understand, and that doesn't require extensive explanation. The other point, Patrick, you made is also fascinating, how the attention span and the onslaught of information getting at us is exponential. So we are now fortifying our defense mechanism for filtering, where these concepts become even more important and amplified. So I'm sure we'll get to it. I would want to know, how do we orient ourselves in this world?
Yeah, so
that's a big question.
Right, that's what I want to know. Now that we are getting into the science of it, because I've been in situations, we create the fact sheets and we are like, we sure clearly have a superior argument. Guess what? That's not the outcome we end up with. Yeah.
And to just circle back to what Christine was saying before, system 1 can be compared to a child of 7. As in, I understand what you're saying, but you don't want to get too complicated, and you want to be, when you're instructing a child of 7, you're short with your sentences. Go and brush your teeth, right? Do your homework, go to bed. Short sentences can be read by system 1. System 1 is really fascinating. System 1 can drive a car on an empty road. You know how sometimes you come home and you can't remember what turnoff you took because you weren't driving, system 1 was. And so things like billboards, right? You drive past a very short period of time. If you have a short headline, system 1 can read that. But if you start overloading it with too much information, it's too much for the child of 7 to read it. And then it doesn't filter through. So keeping things short certainly does help. But where the biggest impact is to be had is to use pieces of information that allow system 1 to make an easier yes decision. And I think in terms of our orientation, I mean, inevitably we're going to get there, is that there are 7 universal principles of persuasion. And these basically categorize these different types of information. And so we could go through those principles and explain to your audience why it is they work, give them some examples and things they can use immediately.
Yeah, let's take maybe the top three. Or do
Sure.
you think we need to cover them all very quickly?
I can
Seven's
fly
a lot.
through them all real quick, and then you can tell me three that you want me to circle back to. How about
All
Okay,
right,
that
all right, let's
sounds
do
good.
that.
that? Okay, cool.
Now, imagine, Patrick, you're talking to System 1, so we are going to test the concepts here.
That's right,
Let's
right.
hear it. Yep.
Wonderful. All right. So there's 7 universal principles of persuasion, and we call them universal because they work in all languages, all cultures, and all countries. And that's exceedingly valuable because, in our own country, our cultures are intermixed, but it's also much easier now to do business with people in other countries. So this is something that works everywhere. So the 7 principles, and all these words you've heard before. And you might even go, yeah, reciprocity. I know how that works. You might even have read Dr. Cialdini's book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, which is considered by many top CEOs to be the best business book of all time. But a lot of people might have been familiar with it. They're not actually using it. And we see that all the time, as in, someone says, yeah, Dr. Cialdini's book, got his book, love it, read it 3 times. And then I look on their website or listen to the sales pitches, they're using it, and they're not actually using it, so didn't develop the application skill. So even if you've heard some of the stuff before, lean in because you're probably not actually using it, or you're not using it in the most effective way. So run through them. There's 7. So there's reciprocity, liking, social proof, authority, consistency, scarcity, and unity, which was the last principle. Those who've heard of Dr. Cialdini's work before, you might think about the 6 principles of persuasion. Now it's 7. All right, so reciprocity. Reciprocity works because we have been trained early on that you don't want to take without giving in return. We have nasty names for people that take without giving in return. And because we also judge other people like that, we don't want to be judged like that. So we go to great lengths to make sure that if someone displays a behavior to us, that we reciprocate that behavior. It's like there's an emotional bank account, right? You do something nice for me, and now I need to do something nice to you. And I'll probably overdo it. I'll probably do even more so just to make sure that you feel I've reciprocated. And so in this context of compliance, people say yes more readily to people that they owe. And in business, we've taken that as in, okay, well, we've got to give people stuff. And that's in essence correct, but a lot of businesses also get that wrong. As in they give things, but there's still a requirement first. Classic example is a downloadable ebook on websites, right? We have a wonderful ebook for you. Just put your name and your email address in. We'll send you the download link, our gift to you. Nice try. It's not going to activate reciprocity because it was name and email address first, then you got the download link. So it wasn't a gift at all. It was a reward, right? There was a requirement. So reciprocity is very cool. It's got a very long expiry date as well. You could help someone now, and that may circle back to you a long time down the track even. Sometimes immediately, but also down the track. All right, so I'll run through them first, and then we'll hone in on a couple. Principle of liking. We like people that are like us. We like people that like us. And we like people that like us and say that they like us. There's sort of 3 qualifiers in there, right? We like people that like us. We like people that are like us is similarities. So it's good if we figure out what we have in common, because if we do that, we like each other more. I was talking to somebody yesterday. We had a long conversation, and halfway through it came out that we're both pilots, where you should have seen the smile that appeared, right? So similarities are important. We also like people that like us, which is a little bit opposite of what is taught in typical sales training. Right? In sales training, they say, well, you should, if you're trying to sell me, then you should do whatever you can so that I like you. You should be likable. And that's not incorrect, but it's not the most powerful. I mean, if I'm considering buying your product or service, it's nice if I like you, but it would be better if I got the feeling that you genuinely liked me, Because if you like me, that means I'm safe with you, right? Because if you like me, you're going to look after me. So that's one dynamic. And then we like people that like us and say so, which means compliments. We are suckers for compliments. And research shows that even fake compliments are just as effective. But there's no need to make up fake compliments. We can just, be a detective of influence and look for genuine things that we can compliment people on. So that's liking. Let's move on to social proof. So social proof, most people have heard of, and you might have heard of the term. The fact that you know the term is because of Dr. Cialdini. He coined the phrase. Before that, it was consistency, or consensus and consistency. Social proof works because we follow the actions of others, especially when they are numerous and when the others are similar to us. And that is because, I suppose evolutionary, that makes perfect sense, right? When a lot of other people are doing a particular action, we're typically safer off doing the same thing. We're very much herd animals like that. It's interesting that seemingly the only area where we don't want to be like everybody else is in romance. When we're trying to, qualify for a mate, then all of a sudden we want to be different than everybody else and we want to be unique. But other than that, we very much follow the crowd. And so in business, most people have jumped on the concept of testimonials and reviews, which is great because that's one particular strategy in social proof that's very powerful. 98% of online shoppers say that detailed online reviews are an important factor when deciding what and where to buy. So we should definitely do that. And I would argue a lot of business owners have discovered how powerful that is and would, at this point, not remove testimonials from the way they do business anymore. And it's wonderful, but at the same token, social proof has a lot more strategies that are equally, if not more powerful, and you're not using any of those. But it's nice that you're using testimonials. So we should collect data about what other people are doing that we're trying to get our audience to do as well. So that's social proof. Then we have the principle of authority. It's always been my favorite for some reason. Authority works because we tend to follow the advice of other people who have more knowledge and wisdom on a particular topic, which makes sense too, because we can't know everything. And when there's someone in the room who knows a lot more about a particular topic than we do, we're typically better off doing what they would suggest. And so that can raise our trust and our credibility. Actually, credibility is a whole different set topic in authority, which I really love. To sidetrack a little bit, a lot of people, when they convey information or they write a brochure or they put things on their website, when it comes to numbers, we have a terrible habit of rounding things off. We say, we got 20 plus years experience. Last year, we helped 1,200 clients. Or, right, we make nice, pretty sounding numbers. But the subconscious of your audience goes, well, you rounded that off. Surely it wasn't exactly that pretty number. So you took a liberty in creating this pretty number, and I don't know how much liberty you took. Mm-hmm. And so you're actually damaging your own credibility. If you just said the actual number, last year we helped 1,193 clients. You go, wow, that must be the actual figure, right? Looks like you took it straight of an Excel spreadsheet or something. So use accurate numbers. Stop rounding off. Anyway, so authority is about establishing our authority. So people process what it is we have to say with the gravity that it deserves. Very cool principle. And one of the most undetectable principles. We don't know that it works on us. Not that we should misuse that, but it's always made me appreciate authority more. Then we have the principle of consistency. So consistency works because people experience an internal pressure to want to stay consistent with past actions and statements that they've made. And if we can link what it is we're offering to what they have expressed as important to them, it's much harder to say no to what it is we're proposing. You might have had a friend call you and go, hey, you consider yourself an adventurous type of person, don't you? Most people think they're adventurous. And I go, yeah, I'm adventurous. And then they say, well, actually, in 3 weeks' time, we're doing a mountain biking trip. You want to come with us? Right? And it's much harder now to say no because you just said that you were an adventurous type of person, right? Right. So with consistency, the common mistake with consistency that people make all the time is that when we're trying to influence, persuade someone, it's never about us. It's about the other person. So it's not about me acting consistently, which is a good thing to do because if we don't do what we said we do, people worry about us and they might think we're unreliable. But when it comes to persuading people, it's always about our audience wanting to be consistent with what they've done. Then we've got 2 left. So scarcity, a lot of us will be familiar with as well, certainly with its impact on us. We value things more that are rare, that are scarce, that are dwindling in availability. Again, that's a shortcut. If things are harder to get, if things are not, you can just pick them up anywhere, they're typically more valuable. And so we pay more attention to that. There's an awesome study that I love on this. They had 2 groups of people judge the different parameters of cookies, including taste, how they experienced eating them, what value they think they had, what ability they would have to fetch a high price, a whole heap of things there to judge. Half of the people were asked to take one of those cookies. They were all the same cookies. Half of the group was asked to take one cookie out of a jar that had 10 cookies in it. The other half of the people were asked to take the exact same cookie out of the exact same jar, but it only had 2 cookies in it. You can feel this coming, right? The people that took the cookie out of a jar that only had 2 cookies in it judged it more favorably on every single point except taste. Because it's all about value. It's not about, it doesn't change our experience of it. So just the fact that it came out of a jar with less cookies altered people's perception because if there's only 2, it must be more valuable, right? So scarcity is also...
Or it's stale, or it's a stale cookie.
But even then, you won't admit it. It will still be valuable.
So scarcity is probably the most abused principle in business. I mean, we've all been on websites where you're looking to buy medicine or supplements or something, and all of a sudden there's a 2-hour and 16-minute sale on. There's a countdown timer going for who knows what reason, right? And it's always low on stock, right? And should you forget to place your order and you come back to it tomorrow, you refresh the page, and guess what? You're another 2 hours and 16 minutes, right? And it's still low on stock.
One-time deals. It's a one-time deal. It expires in X hours or X days. Yeah. It's always the one time. Yep.
And 52 other people are looking at it in their carts.
Yeah. And if it's, and this sort of takes us to the ethics of this, right? Which is a whole interesting topic as well. But if this information is used truthfully, then we're happy to receive it. We want to know that there's only 4 tickets left with this airline at this price category. Right? But we don't want to be deceived. And when we are deceived, it damages the reputation of this company or this person for a long time. Anyway, so that's scarcity. And the last principle is unity that Dr. Cialdini uncovered with a lot of additional research, was sort of revealed to us in 2015. So unity is often confused with liking. Liking is more about similarities. Unity is about having a feeling of community that we both feel part of. If I can describe you and me as we, because of a group, because of a community we're part of, then we have a favoritism towards each other. You might have met someone in an airport and turns out they went to the same university as you, right? And all of a sudden you got this familiarity towards each other, and this favoritism. Well, you can have that with other people if you figure out that you have these things in common. And unity also holds within it co-creation. So if we work with other people, that creates that feeling of unity. So those are the 7 principles of persuasion.
Okay. So for a leader who's hearing these now, is there one that is a superpower of them all? If you could only learn one, or at least maybe where's the first place you would start?
It's very hard to say which one's a superpower because it depends on where you are in a situation. If you have a weak relationship, you can try and motivate people with scarcity, but it's not going to be very successful because they have a bad relationship with you. As in, if I don't like you, I'm going to go out of my way to not deal with you. So we want to focus on principles which are help us with building and repairing relationships. Once we've got relationship, people typically are still uncertain about what it is we're offering. So then we need to reduce uncertainty, and there's other principles that are good to do that. And once we also have people that, they love us, they love our product or service or our idea. When we're ready, I'm going to get your stuff, but they're still not buying it. They're still not doing it. And so now motivation is lacking. So we need to focus on principles that help us stimulate that motivation for people to act. So in terms of, I always have some favorites. Of course, reciprocity is more powerful, I think, than a lot of people appreciate. So we want to look, how can we genuinely help someone? Not with a mindset of, okay, if I do that, they'll do this back to me. Just coming from genuinely assisting and helping people, that can create genuine reciprocity, which is a lot more powerful. Authority affects everything you say. Here's a cute one. There's a way how you can instantly establish yourself as a trustworthy source of information. And we find examples of that in advertising. The strategy is that you first mention a weakness before going into the strengths of your case. And I can give you a couple of examples. L'Oreal, the cosmetics brand, their USP at the moment is you're worth it, which came from, as in it's evolved a little bit over time, we're worth it. And the original was we're expensive, but worth it. They all still mean the exact same thing. And it seems counterintuitive to point out to people that you're expensive. But by raising a weakness early on, we establish ourselves as a trustworthy source of information. The audience goes, well, if you're honest enough to tell us about the weaknesses in your case, then, well, I must be able to trust you when it comes to the strengths of your case. And so when we mention a weakness and then a hinge word like but or however, and then we focus on the strengths of our case, those strengths will be more believed than they otherwise would be. One of my colleagues worked with a charity, Professor Gregory Neidert, and the charity had an approach on their pitches and their proposals, and it was something along the lines of, your donation has never gone further than it has before, but we know how difficult it is for many people to give during these difficult economical times. Right? So there was a weakness, but it was at the end of the sentence. And so all he did was ask them to move those two parts of the sentence around. We know how difficult it is to give during these difficult economical times, but your donation has never gone further than it has today. You can even feel it, right? Mm-hmm. Donations increased by 36% just by moving these parts of a sentence around.
That's just remarkable. And, in a optimum world, you want these 7 principles to come together because they are genuine and they are coming together for the benefit of the buyer. I have a little bit different question for your perspective, Patrick. So let's say I am the consumer of this information. I am assessing my options to invest in a product or a service. And the person coming at me, I like them. I feel like they are trustworthy. trustworthy, they're presenting me with good facts, etc. But it may still not be the right thing for me. I want to still activate my system too, to look at my options logically and in a grounded way. So what should I do as a buyer or the recipient of the pitch, so that I am not only making decisions because of a connection, but also for the right reasons for what I may need?
Yeah, so and thank you for raising that. And that's also good to bring up, is that persuasion science, it's not magic either, right? It doesn't work on 100% of people all the time. It's all about increasing the chances that someone says yes to you. And so if what it is you're offering is just completely wrong for them, it's not going to make it right? But it's all about, for those people who had the yes within them, it allowed that yes to come out. And from a behavioral science perspective, it's very interesting. If we take it for a moment to, let's say you're the boss and you want your employees to do certain things, you can, let's say, stand over them. And because you're the boss, they'll probably do what it is you're saying. But when you walk away, the behavior might change back again, as in when the boss is away, or the cat is away, the mice will play, right? But if we persuade people from motivation, from values that are within them, the decision comes from within them. And so they're going to stay changed even when you walk away, because they made the decision. But from a consumer perspective, we would value, or we would be benefited by actually knowing how this stuff works. If you can recognize the types of information that qualify as shortcuts, right? If you hear that something is popular, for example, that works on your subconscious, right? When you say, this is the most popular item we have, everybody who's trained in persuasion will go, social proof, right? So you immediately recognize it as a piece of information. You can then, step two is to say, okay, do I think this information is given to me in a genuine, honest way? Does it suit my purpose? And so it sort of takes the power away from it when it's not done in an ethical way. If it is done in an ethical way, then I actually welcome the information, because if a product or a service is genuinely the most popular, I'll probably be the best off with that decision. So that helps a lot. If you actually understand the science, it's a bit like a self-defense course, as in you can analyze what people throw at you, accept authority. That's very hard to detect. And scarcity also has a very deep action within us, but we can recognize it more. But if ever in doubt, when you're in a situation where you think, I'm just not sure, delay your decision. And certainly on websites, I've seen that so often. I mean, just here in Australia, the financial year has just ticked over, and me and my partner were looking at a new dryer. And because it was the end of financial year, right, there's all these sales on. And so we didn't end up buying anything, but we still had these web pages open. And so, big end of financial year badge on there, discounted price. And so on the 1st of July or the 2nd of July, I'm clicking the refresh button, and the badge disappears for the end of financial year, but the price didn't change. The price stayed the same, right? So instantly, I also know now that white goods store has these sorts of tactics, and I shouldn't really believe anything that they might pitch at me in the future. And that's where it damages people's reputation to do this to other people. And we should pounce on people that dare to pull this sort of stuff on us. This is powerful stuff. How dare they use this on us in an unethical way?
Yeah. So spot on. I mean, it's almost, I think, applying these principles in an intentional way for the right reasons can also help us get out of our own way. Meaning, we may have genuinely a differentiated product service act that betters humanity for one way or another. But if we are unable to connect with people, to communicate it properly, then we are going nowhere. this is just such a deep topic, just like you said, Patrick. We are approaching the end of our time. You have given a lot to think about. I am just really grateful you actually had the 7 principles listed behind you, because I kept referencing them as you are describing them. Christine, how do we want to wrap up this awesome topic that gave us so much to think about and practice?
Yeah, I think one last question. You gave a little bit more of a description of social proof, which is beyond, logos and customer references. For the reciprocity, I can't say that word today. Reciprocity. Yeah. I think many sellers were taught that really means you're providing a value in exchange for your client to meet you halfway and provide something as well. So it at least the way that we came up, it was very transactional, and that was almost like a test to see if you were on the same page. If you gave them, a special access to something, you would expect that there'll be more introductions to their team, there'll be more, access, whatever it was. That was just one example. Do you think of it differently in terms of a, really ethical way of persuasion?
You always need to come from how can I help someone? And then I think that puts us on the right track. If it comes from how can I assist someone? If this person, I don't know, is going to make a decision on, I don't know, retirement planning or whatever, what information can I give them that regardless if they end up using me, right? What I gave them is valuable stuff to know or to have. Then I've genuinely helped people, and people feel that as well, and so they feel indebted to you. And it doesn't win it doesn't win the time, doesn't win the battle all the time, but it's the right thing to do. And especially if you're wanting to give a physical as in a tangible gift away, and it doesn't always need to be a tangible gift. It can be an intangible gift, it can be information, it can be time, it can be attention that you can give to someone that then reciprocates back to you. But if you're giving something that is of small value, a tangible gift, you are infinitely better off giving that away early on rather than late. And I can give you an example. There was a fast food store, and I think they were selling yogurt. And some people entered and they were greeted nicely at the door. That was group 1. Group 2 was nicely greeted at the door, and they got a keychain thing. And it was at a cost of 12 cents. So they got a little gift as they entered the store. That was group 2. Group 3 was greeted friendly at the door, and they were given a sample of yogurt. Right now, and this had some resistance with management, as in management went, hang on a second, these people are hungry. They're going to come into our store because we're hungry, and we're going to feed them at the door. Are you insane? No, hang on, we're doing behavioral science. Bear with us, right? So they were given a little bit of yogurt, also worth 12 cents at the door as well. When compared with the group that was just greeted nicely at the door, the people that got the keychain worth 12 cents, their orders were on average 12% higher than, let's say, the control group. The people that got the yogurt sample worth 12 cents, their orders were on average 24% higher. So therefore, it's giving is one thing, but when it's more meaningful, then its value increases and the reciprocation also increases. But yeah, there's so much to reciprocity as well. There's also reciprocal concessions, which is a fascinating topic, but maybe we'll have to do another episode.
Yeah, maybe we will. And you have a course that's coming up, right? Do you want to talk just briefly about how some of the topics we've explored today can be explored more deeply?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Everybody should read and own Dr. Cialdini's book. But fact is that when we have one-time exposure to something and there's no assistance from somebody, from a peer that can guide you through it, we're not going to build application skills. So if you'll take my word for it, For those who are interested in learning this properly, Dr. Cialdini has a flagship course. It's called the Cialdini Certified Practitioner course. The trainers like me guide students through that process. And it's only an investment of about 20 hours, about an hour a week of home study, and then an hour together with the trainers in a group setting, and that over 8 weeks. So it's a small injection of time, but we work on that retention and application skill, which is why we do the live sessions. So this is the fastest way to actually learn this. There's also other options like weekly little lessons that people can get. And of course, I do keynotes as well and workshops. So it just depends on, if it's an individual wanting to learn more, if it's an organization that wants to learn more. On my website, ethicalpersuasion.com.au, there's also a complimentary section you can find in the menu bar. There's a downloadable ebook that you can download. No email required. You can just right-click and download. So, it's a true gift. There's also a 7-day email challenge, which will keep you on your toes, give you some things to think about. Cool. And we're working on having a complimentary access to a 12-month program where you can have 5 or 6 weeks free access, which includes live Zoom calls with me as well to ask some of your implementation questions. So that's coming soon as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. Lots of options, and you're very generous with your time because of the 7 principles we know, which is great.
Yeah, just trying to help. And actually, I also have a podcast, Ethical Persuasion Unlocked. And so, it's not a course, but there's definitely more nuggets of gold to pick up there as well.
Lovely, lovely. Well, we've learned so much with you today, Patrick. Thanks so much for sharing your talents, your wisdom with the group. And we will have those links in our show notes so that people can access them easily online. And we look forward to staying connected.
Lovely. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining from Melbourne, Patrick. Appreciate you crossing multiple time zones to be here with us as well.
Wonders of technology.
That's right.
Exactly. We connect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Our hope is to spark a little joy, inspire, and educate our listeners in ways to live an even more meaningful life. If you have reactions to share from what you've heard, please visit our website, refirement.life, to leave a voice message. You may even be featured in a future episode. To keep in touch, subscribe to our podcast, Refirement Life, using the podcast player of your choice. Always remember, you are never too old to set a new goal or to dream a new dream. Thanks again for joining us on this episode. Until next time.